If you love the look and feel of a clean home but you hate cleaning, don't worry, because in this video, I'm going to share a list of 20 things to avoid for a low maintenance home that's easy to maintain and always looks clean and tidy. Hi there and welcome to my channel. My name is Marissa and this is A to Zen Life, where we talk about the A to Z of simplifying your way to a life you love. And believe it or not, I've lived in 20 different homes throughout my life. So needless to say, I've had a lot of experience with living in and cleaning homes of all shapes and sizes. And I'm here to tell you that there are some home items you should just never own if you hate cleaning. So if you're like us and you're looking to buy a home, or maybe you're thinking of renovating the home that you already have, please, I beg you, watch this video from start to finish so that at least you know what kind of mess you might be getting into if you rent or buy a home that has any of this stuff in it. And number one on this list, we have the bane of my existence, dark flooring. We're currently living in a rented townhouse that has dark flooring throughout the entire main level, and let me tell you, whoever first said that ignorance is bliss must have had dark flooring, because I used to live in blissful ignorance about the crumbs and dust that must have been on the floor in our old home, because it had these beautiful, warm, light oak wood floorboards that just really did a good job of kind of masking any particles that might have landed on the floor. But now that we have a home that has dark flooring, I know that anytime we sit down to eat or grab a snack or basically just exist, and I guess dust comes off of our skin in these spaces,
It's just gross all around, really.
I am going to see particles on the dark wood floor within seconds of me vacuuming it clean. I will literally get up and show you right now. These floors were clean when we got up in the morning, and all we did was have breakfast. And now, after having only breakfast, the floors look like this. So my oldest son sits in this chair, and you can see how underneath his chair, there are just so many particles of food and debris and dust and who knows what else underneath here. And this is literally just after a few hours. So if you're thinking of putting down dark flooring in your house, or you're looking at houses that have dark flooring to buy, just be aware of how much time you're going to be devoting in the future to keeping those floors clean so that they look good. Next up on this list, along with dark flooring, dark countertops are really hard to keep clean. However, I do want to say that not all dark countertops are created equally when it comes to this. So for example, in our old home in Berlin, we had dark black countertops. They were granite, but it had these kinds of veins of like white and goldish and oranges and flecks of gold kind of through it. So that kind of broke up the darkness and made it easier not to see if there were crumbs or water or anything else that was out on the countertop. But in the apartment that we were renting before that, we had dark countertops that were like a very matte, not shiny color with only a little bit of like white streaking through it. And those were really, really good at showing every speck of dust and crumb that fell on top of them. And then along with dark countertops, at the other end of the spectrum, you have real marble countertops. Marble is incredibly high maintenance and a very porous material, and even the sealants that you put on it don't protect it for a really long time. So you have to keep resealing it over and over. And then if there's just any gaps in the sealant, anything that's acidic or like red wine or vinegars are going to seep in and stain your countertops. And apparently they're really easy to scratch and edge and so on. So if you're like me and you like things that are a little bit more low maintenance, a little bit more chill and easy to take care of, but you still love the look of marble, you could try to get a quartz or a quartzite that has a similar look to it. Number 4 on this list is white or light upholstery on furniture. Think white and cream couches or very light gray couches and chairs, but this can even apply to beige. Like when I first met my husband, he had this micro suede beige couch. I will have to see if I can find pictures of this thing, because once we had kids and they started sitting and maybe carrying around their snacks or their juice if we didn't keep an eye on them well enough, and they started spilling things onto this couch. This couch was just absolutely covered in stains. So especially if you have young kids or pets, it might be a good idea to avoid light colored upholstery. Or if you're really dead set on having light colored upholstery on some of your furniture, you could look for fabrics that are more resistant to liquids and stains. Number 5 on this list is glass countertops. On one hand, glass is a really low maintenance material, like you don't need to worry about it getting stained like you do marble. But then on the other hand, any droplet of water that you drop onto that countertop is going to be very visible. And with ours, I was finding that all of the water would like cast a shadow. And then if you were not on top of getting that countertop wiped up right away, then we had hard water and it would leave this kind of hard water stains on top of the countertop. And then, you know, it was really, really hard to get it wiped up off of the glass. Personally, I think granite is a better choice for a bathroom, especially granite that has some kind of different colorations within it so that it's not as visible when you have water standing there. And it's not also as pressing for you to wipe it up because the stains aren't going to show through as much. And then speaking of bathrooms, another thing that I couldn't stand in our old bathroom was vessel sinks. So these are sinks that are mounted on top of the counter instead of like underneath. And I really like below mounted sinks because you're in the bathroom and you're washing your face and water gets splashed to the side. You can just kind of sweep the water into the sink and then mop it up. But when you have a vessel sink on top of the countertop, you kind of have to keep a microfiber cloth or a rag or something to dry up around it close by. And you have a lot more surface to clean because on top of the actual flat surface of the sink, then you also have to clean up and around all of the sides of this sink. And sometimes it can get really tight around the back. Like it's really hard to get a rag in behind between the sink and the wall. So that's another consideration. Next up, kind of along the same lines, are freestanding bathtubs. And I don't know if it's just me and I like splash a lot, but it seems like whenever there's a freestanding tub, there's always this huge splash zone around it whenever I use the bathtub. That doesn't happen when I'm using a bathtub that's attached to the wall and that has sides around it. And then, I mean, if I'm making these kind of splash zones, just imagine how big of a splash zone your kids are going to make. And then along with splashing outside of the tub, then you also have to worry about cleaning pretty much a 360-degree surface all the way around the tub from where the splashing is running over. Maybe shampoo and conditioner might run down the side. If your kids are playing with bubble bath, that might be going over the side. You're not just like cleaning up around a neat wall around the edges of your tub, then you have to go over all of the sides and down to the floor, and then probably even the floor itself around the tub. Don't get me wrong, they look amazing, but for practical day-to-day use, I just think a tub that's attached to a wall is a much, much more practical option. Ooh, and speaking of tubs, don't even get me started on jacuzzi tubs. These things gross me out so bad. When I met my husband, he had his own condo that had a jacuzzi tub like this, and he showed me how to clean it. And he filled it up with water so that the water was above the jacuzzi jets. And then he flipped the switch and turned on, and all of this black stuff just came pouring out of these jets. I'm like gagging just thinking about it because it's so gross. If you have a low tolerance for gag-inducing stuff like I do, I would highly advise you not to get a jacuzzi tub. Number 9 on this list are micro and mosaic tiles. And it's not so much the tiles that are the problem, it's the grout that's in between the tiles. And the smaller the tiles, the more lines of grout that you're going to have to clean. The grout in between the small tiles that can get really dirty and discolored or even get mold in it. And then if you have to clean that, it is so tedious. I used to do it with a toothbrush, go in with some cleaner and a toothbrush and scrub them individually line by line. Or even if you get a bigger hand brush, it still takes a long time to clean it if the entire wall and the floor is covered in these tiles and these lines of grout. While there are smarter cleaning options, not everyone has the money or the place to store big power tools that will allow you to quickly and efficiently clean tiles and grout like this. So definitely keep that in mind if you're looking at or thinking of using tiles like this in the future. Next up, we have gas cooktops. And I'm going to admit that I had a terrible mindset about induction cookers when I first started looking at houses. I was like, why would I ever want to have a house with an induction cooktop? Real cooks only use flames. Do you see Gordon Ramsay or Bobby Flay cooking on an induction cooktop? And I have to say that after living in our Berlin home and experiencing how easy it was to keep our induction cooktop clean, I was totally hooked. Now that we've moved back to the US and I once again have a gas stove and I have an open flame again, now I realize how tedious it is to have to clean that thing because you have to pull off the grates that protect the flames. You have to put those to the side. Then you have to clean all of the nooks and crannies on top of the stove. Then you have to individually clean off the grates and the circles that you took off. And it takes a lot of time. Meanwhile, back when I had an induction cooktop, I pretty much just had to grab off the large chunks of things that might be sitting on it, wipe it down with the soft side of a soapy sponge, dry it up, and then I was done with it. While there are downsides to using induction versus gas, like for example, some pots and pans will not work on an induction cooktop, I do think that the pros for induction cooktops outweigh the cons, and I would definitely choose induction over gas if I have the choice going forward. Number 11. Open shelving. This is one of those things that looks amazing in pictures and on social media, but is so impractical for real life, especially in the kitchen where you're cooking and maybe you have grease splattering or fumes coming up off of your cooktop. On top of the dust that can collect on those open shelving, there can just be a lot of grime that you need to clean off on a regular basis. Not to mention that it can attract clutter. Like we know, clutter can attract clutter. And so keeping the shelves looking tidy and not adding more things to those shelves sometimes can be a struggle, especially if these are things that you actually use on your shelves and you're taking them on and off on a regular basis. It's not always easy to keep it looking tidy and clean. So if you like the look of open shelving, but you don't want to go full on open shelving, something that we did in our old kitchen was we had some of the cabinets, especially on the top level, that were glass, and then you could partially see into them, and that was where we put some of our prettier pieces. And then outside of the kitchen, you can also have open shelving. For example, in my library/office area, we had two IKEA Billy bookshelves that had doors, and 3/4 of the doors had glass so that you could see the shelving behind, but it still did a good job of keeping the dust out. And also it gave us a little bit of space where we could hide stuff that we didn't necessarily want on display. So that's a good way to balance the look of open shelving, but still keep things functional. Number 12 is textured or uneven surfaces. And I especially think about this in bathrooms or in kitchens, particularly the backsplashes. I've been in a lot of homes recently where they have kind of this rough backsplash or like texturing where it's wavy, and all I can think about when I'm seeing those is how hard it's going to be to clean those surfaces. Like the great thing about subway tiles or backsplashes that are made out of one solid piece like stone or glass is that you can just get a moist cloth and wipe them down very easily, or use a rag and dust them off quickly. But when you have uneven textured or especially rough surfaces, it's not always easy to get your cloths over those surfaces to wipe off the dirt and grime. Showers that don't have handheld shower heads. I don't know if this is more of a European thing, but every single bathroom that I went to at family or friends' houses in Europe, their bathtubs and showers always had like a handheld shower head that you could not only use to rinse your body off while you're showering, but also made it easier to clean the shower or the tub because you could take it off the hook and literally just wash down the walls. But now that we're living here, none of our showers have these removable handheld shower heads. So what I have to do when I'm cleaning the bathroom is I have to go in with this ginormous bowl of water and I have to throw the bowl on the wall like I'm Dorothy trying to melt the Wicked Witch. Anyway, it is possible to switch it out. So that's definitely something, if our next house doesn't come with that, that we will probably be DIYing on our own. Another thing that's kind of a red flag for me in homes that we've been seeing is seeing bathrooms that don't seem to have good ventilation. And maybe this is because before we almost got burned because we put an offer in on a house only to find out that when they had done the renovations, they had just vented the bathroom into the attic, and then that attic had gotten moldy and it had ruined the roof, which was going to cost $40,000. And luckily we were able to get out of that, which you can find out more about in this video that I'll link up here. But it kind of really made me think about how important good ventilation in the bathroom is. And for us, we prefer to have at least one window in the bathroom if possible. Ideally one that actually opens, because we have been in bathrooms where it has some light coming in the window, but that window did not open. So that's definitely something that we look out for when we're looking for a house. Because if you don't have good ventilation, you're in danger of your bathroom or other areas around your bathroom getting mold and other nasty things growing in them. Number 15 is floor mounted toilets. Because when you have a toilet that's like mounted to the wall, you don't have all of this business going on at the bottom where there's these nooks and crannies and ups and downs and crevasses and things. Whereas with a floor mounted toilet, you have all of that you need to dust and you need to clean. And it feels like sometimes, honestly, you can never get it clean because some of the spaces are so small and tight in there. I think visually it also just looks cleaner too. Like there's just less visual noise with wall mounted toilets versus floor mounted toilets. So it would be my preference to have wall mounted toilets if possible, but that seems to be pretty uncommon here in our area. Number 16 is carpets and rugs. And you might hear me complaining about our dark wood flooring, but I still feel like our dark wood floors are preferable to having carpets and rugs. And the reason is that if something is dropped on the floor, let's say next to my dining room table, it's easier for me to get that up off of the floor with the vacuum versus if there was a carpet or a rug there. And for example, like when my son dropped his spaghetti fork the other day, and spaghetti sauce splattered all over the floor. If that was a carpet, it would have been more difficult to get that clean, but because it was hardwood flooring, I was able to just go in and clean that up with a quick wipe very, very quickly. I do keep small rugs and floor mats in places like the kitchen and in the bathrooms because that's where I say wash dishes or people are washing their hands and there's spillage over onto the floor. Then that protects them and it makes sense. And those are easier to pick up and wash. But as for like big area rugs, I'm not a big fan. But I always get complaints because people say that our minimalist home echoes too much, but I would much rather put up with echoes than have a rug in my home. Actually, going back to my son dropping the spaghetti fork, the next item on this list is dining chairs with upholstery on them. And this is something that if you have kids, I think you just need to avoid at all costs because their little fingers and their little hands get so dirty. They're always covered in chip dust or almond butter. And it's just so easy for them to rub their hands on the chair or to get up out of the chair and put their hands down to push themselves up, and then you've got stuff all over your chair. And it's so much harder to clean when it's covered in upholstery versus just having wood chairs or plastic chairs or something like that. The 18th thing to avoid if you hate cleaning is homes or rentals that don't have enough storage space. We have struggled with this in the past, in particular our home in Germany, because old homes there don't have closets, and so we had to get creative with our storage and use things like Billy bookshelf to store our vacuum cleaner and our giant bags of rice in, and another Billy bookshelf in my office to keep our books and collectibles and other things that we wanted to store away. When we go to houses, one thing that I'm really looking out for is, do they have good storage in the entryway or when you come off of the garage, like a mudroom, for shoes, coats, hats, scarves, and things like that. And you would be surprised how many homes do not have a coat closet whatsoever that's quickly accessible right in the entryway. And so you've got to think in everyday use, when my family is going in and out of the home, where are the shoes and the coats going to go? I'll tell you where they're going to go, right on the floor for people to trip over and to bother you for the rest of the day. So if you're also looking to buy a home or you're currently struggling with this, definitely think about how you can create systems to store and organize these problem areas in your home. Number 19 is homes that are either too small or too large. On one hand, homes that are too small can be difficult to keep tidy due to a lack of space and storage. And on the other hand, homes that are too large are hard to clean because there's so much extra square footage that you need to cover when you're cleaning it. There's more space to fill up with clutter, there's more to dust, and there's more square footage that you need to vacuum when you have a larger home. So when you're looking for a home, think like Goldilocks, not too small, not too big, but something that's just right for you and your family. And finally, number 20 on this list is too much clutter. Were you expecting that? I'm sure you were, because this is a minimalism channel after all. Just like having too much extra square footage in your home can add up to more dusting, vacuuming, and so on, having too much extra clutter and stuff in your home also does the same thing. Please make sure to give this video a like and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're wondering if you have too much clutter and you're on the fence about getting rid of some of it, make sure to go check out this video that has 10 of the most common signs that someone has too much clutter, as well as suggestions on what to do next. Or I'll see you next week. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.